Hi again, welcome back. I'm here with Lainey. We're going to be working through Dandasana, so staff pose. Basically, this is Tadasana seated. So I don't want you to be misled. This is not just a sitting around posture. This takes a lot of back work, a lot of core work, and a lot of leg work to be able to maintain an erect posture like this. So Lainey's going to turn sideways and extend her legs out in front of her. And so as she sits, first things first, Lainey has pretty good mobility through her hamstrings and lower back, so she's able to sit upright. But let's say you or your student is a little bit more rounded out, tighter in the back, tighter in the hamstrings, and you end up kind of like a C curve or a macaroni noodle on the floor. This is where you're going to want to sit on something. And I'm really fond of kind of sitting more so to the middle edge of the blanket. Now they might need multiple blankets in order to help them sit more upright through their lower and mid back. But in addition to this, she may also need something underneath her knees. One thing that often gets overlooked is we prop people's hips up in Dandasana, but now there's this direct pressure down through the knee joint, which can create a lot of discomfort. So make sure you're also supporting the knees, which you can equally do the same thing. I'm going to switch this out with something like a yoga block, using one or two and having that edge support the knees. You can easily use just the rolled mat or block under the knees, or just the blanket, and maybe not both, or maybe you need several, depending on how your body is operating. One thing I definitely want to stress is just because the knees are supported in a slight bend doesn't mean that there's not some lengthening going on in the backs of the legs. We do not need to be locked long in order to essentially feel like we're getting a really great stretch. Most people have already gone beyond their range of motion, and so we're kind of in hypermobility territory, and we've retrained our tissues and those proprioceptors and those tissues to think that this is normal range, which in fact we've already gone beyond that. So don't feel like you have to force things that are just not there. So I know Lainey's comfortable off the blanket, so I'm going to have her come up off the blanket. And she can also remove that block if she wants to. So in working with Dandasana, we want to feel as though we're secure on our sit bones and our back body is nice and long without flailing the rib cage open. So really feeling long through the top of the head, and then planting the hands down at your sides. Now if you have short arms, feel free to prop them on blocks, or if you have long arms, you can sit on a blanket to be able to get that length. So as she pushes her palms into the floor, there's a great wrist stretch. She's going to work to lengthen up, really anchoring the shoulders, trying to stretch the sides of the neck, top of the head to the sky, not the chin. And so Dandasana is all about being active in the position. So her feet are flexing back, reaching through the heels. Her quads are moving into her hamstrings, and her belly and pelvic floor are really drawing inward and upward to create a nice lower 3 chakra activation, or lower 3 activation points through the pelvic floor and into that lower belly. And then you're trying to challenge yourself to stay here for as long as possible. Now she could also do this with her back against the wall or her feet against the wall for a little versatility. From this point now, I'm going to give Lainey a block, and she's going to place that between her palms. And on an inhalation, bend and extend her arms overhead without lifting her shoulders. So really creating an anchoring in her shoulder blades, in her rib cage, and trying to push in on the block as she reaches the block up and away. So we're creating this really active anchoring in the shoulder girdle and really active control in the core. Now, as she exhales, I'm actually going to have her hinge about 45 degrees forward, trying to push the block up and out as she simultaneously drops the shoulders down and back. This is not a fold in the mid-back. This is a hinge from the hip. This is a really deep strength through the core and a super long line from her hip bones anchoring to her block reaching, arms alongside the ears. Notice that I'm not calling this a fold, but rather a hinge. That way your mindset, your subconscious is not going, oh, I got to get to the legs. We could create a dynamic movement of this, and inhale coming upright, and exhale hinging from the hip line. Awesome. And then inhale coming upright. Exhale hinging from the hip line. Now if this arm alignment's too much, you could also have no block and do it in cactus as well. So know that you have some options. And so I'm actually going to have her turn her palms in for a little bit more arm activation, and she could do essentially the same thing. As she hinges, she's going to try to pull her arms back without flailing her ribs, and then coming back up again. So doing 5 or 10 rounds of this creates a much more dynamic sequencing in a pose like Dandasana. Rather than just sitting around, you might as well do something with it, right? All right, nice work. Bring those arms down. Great job.